Hey, good morning. It's Galicia. We're going to try this again. Sorry, I hit the wrong button when I went to go double check my sound check and whatnot. But, oops, sorry. So, hello, guys. It's Galicia from the 12th year. I just wanted to hop on today. Normally, we have a interview with a Instagram fan featured, but today we're going to be talking about policies. And policies, I think, have resulted because of a situation that happened to me in my business. And so when you come up to a certain situation in your business and it goes to the fan, it hits the fan in a bad way, you then implement a policy to reflect that situation. And that's what really policies are all about, is because you've experienced something in your business that that doesn't feel good to you. And that's the whole point, is we want you to think about today, as you set policies in place in your business, situations that may occur. And also policies give you that automatic speech or automatic thing to say when that situation occurs. So it keeps you from guessing, oh gosh, should I give them a discount, or should I extend their payments, or maybe it's okay, she's my one and only client. What policies do, it helps you keep your consistent service with all of your clients, and it creates this boundary around you so that you're running proficiently. Hey, Gretchen. Hi, guys. So today's policy or today's topic is all about policy. So I'm going to give you guys some food for thought of what policies you should have in place in your business. And also maybe you have them and you're not clear as to what those policies are, what policy is that. It's a really good thing too to review your policies as well, because after all, it may be outdated, or you need to maybe you need to refine it. But this is a good time to check to see what policies you do have in place. I like to check mine every year just to make sure I'm in line with myself. And plus, also, you may have had a situation during that year that causes you to write a new policy. So let's start with a list of policies that you definitely should have in place. By all means, this isn't the end all be all of list. You can definitely add to this list. I know I probably will be, as well as I started getting suggestions from or answers from our poll yesterday that I had put out. So here we go. All right. And of course, if you guys have questions about any of these, feel free to ask. Or like I said, if you have a suggestion on a policy, definitely put it in the comments, because people on the replay can definitely check it out too. Okay. My list is very long. Some of these are very that you should definitely have a policy around that. But like I said, the whole point to having these is so that you are aware and you're able to set boundaries around yourself, so you're not giving the farm away. You're not put in a tough situation. You know how to respond. All right. So the first policy that I have is late payments. This may apply to you if you have, if you allow payment plans. And one thing that I learned early on, that these payment plans, while yes, they could be in writing, or they're a verbal agreement, or they're through email or whatever, you should still have a late payment policy, because when you don't set that structure around that, you definitely are open to, oh gosh, can I pay you next Friday instead of when it was due? And now you're having to shift and make arrangements around the new due date. And that's not, you're not Bank of, Galicia, and neither are you. You're offering a special opportunity to, be able to allow these clients to be on a payment plan. So when you think of a payment plan or a late fee policy, what does that look like for you? And I mean, when we shop and use our credit cards and we're late paying our payment, what does the credit card company do to us. They ding us with a late payment fee. And so, and it hurts to get that, right? You're like, dang, could have prevented that. So I would definitely consider having a late payment fee when a payment plan is made and you're not, and they're not adhering to that end of the bargain. What happens if someone shows up late to your shoot? That has happened to me. Again, these are all spawning off of things that happened to me in my business over the past 5 years. So, what if someone's late to your shoot? Especially when there's a makeup artist involved. You set time aside for that particular spot, and your makeup artist makes adjustments, obviously, to accommodate your client. And when they're late, that puts them late, that puts you late, and now time is constricted with the amount of light that you have during your shoot. So if you've not considered it before, I would definitely think about having a policy around when someone shows up late and what do you do. Another one that you should keep or think about your policy is, how long do you keep galleries for? And we often think about galleries as being a service for our clients, that we archive those galleries. But have you ever thought about a time limit? Or what if someone doesn't buy a gallery and you archive it? How long do you keep it archived? Is there a fee to unarchive it? That sounds funny. But those are some things to think about when you are thinking about your galleries. And what happens if they don't purchase it, right? How long do you keep those archived, or how long do you hold on to those, or how long do you hold on to purchased galleries, right? So that's a policy to think about as well. Pricing. This is a big one, and I don't mean specifically about your price, because that's set in stone, and people, yes, are going to try to negotiate with you. But what happens if you're offering a certain collection and they want to substitute something out? And normally we would say, gosh, absolutely not, no substitutions. But for me, it's dependent upon case by case, and knowing your numbers, you guys. Because have you ever felt like you're in your sales meeting and your client says, gosh, I would totally get this top package, or that top package just seems really expensive, but I really want, said product in that package. And then you start feeling like, oh my gosh, I really want this sale. Maybe I'll offer her a discount. Right? Because she wanted something in the other collection but didn't want to pay the top collection price, or whatever. Whatever the case is, you understand what I'm trying to say, is that you need to develop a policy around what substitutions look like, what you're willing to do for each client, but also knowing your numbers. So knowing the cost of goods for each of those collections, and knowing that if you swap this for this, does it equate to the same cost? And that's what keeps you from giving away the farm when you're feeling guilty, or even if your client hasn't said anything and you're like trying to prevent that awkward feeling, right? So this is a good time to review what your pricing policies are for products within a collection, right? And knowing those numbers and what would be an equal swap without giving the farm away. Obviously, we should be having model releases. This goes with the standard of, a minor, and that you want to use these images online, and you want to use them for marketing as well. So model release, I think, doesn't go unrecognized, but always a good reminder to have as well. Having a policy around your turnaround time. I always like to go with the notion, the quote, over deliver, under promise, or under promise, over deliver. That's it right there. So I always give myself a ton of extra time, because we all know life can happen during your business peak season. But also, you don't want to say, oh, I'll have it ready for you tomorrow or the next week. And we definitely start to undercut ourselves and give unrealistic deadlines and causes us to look like we can't hold our word. And so I like I said, I would think about what's your turnaround time and give yourself a ton of extra cushion. Refund return policy. This is a really good one to think about because I haven't had anything really about returns, but refunds, I didn't like this, I want my money back, or I didn't book my session, I want my session fee back. This is a good time to think about where do you stand on your policy as far as refunds and returns. All right. The other one is social media. And actually, this was one of the good questions that someone, as I wrote down some of these, what happens if, what's your social media policy as far as delivering images? Do they have to keep the image intact? Do they have to tag you? Can they put a filter on it? Obviously not, but we have to be able to educate the clients with what our expectations are when it comes to social media. I think with everything, but we definitely need to be educating them about that. Some other ones that I wrote down is, so here's the thing. If you own a website and your people are coming to your website, and if you have some type of like Facebook pixel that tracks, where they're looking at on your Facebook because you're going to do Facebook ads, or on your website because you're going to do Facebook ads, or we have those things called cookies where it checks the IP address of the person who's coming to your website, or if you're collecting information on your website, such as in a contact form or anything like that. On your website, you definitely have to have a privacy policy. I will be sharing, Karen Tager is an attorney that used to be a photographer, and she has a privacy policy template that you could purchase in her shop, but you definitely should be having a privacy policy on your website. And you should also have terms and conditions on your website as well. And those are some policies that I did not come up with myself. I didn't even know we were supposed to have those until I spoke with my attorney, Karen, and she's like, you should be having these on your website. And so if you don't have that, you definitely have to have that. Some other policies to think about is, what are the stipulations for firing a client? I don't know if you guys have ever fired a client, but I have. And what does that look like, right? What is the situation where you have to do that, let a client go, or they're just not a good fit? What does that look like to you? And how do you go about that? That's something to think about as well. Behind the scenes. Have you guys ever been on a photo shoot and the mom whips out her iPhone or a full-fledged camera and she's taking the same exact photos that you're taking of your client, of the daughter, and post those all over Facebook? And they're not even your pictures. And I've had that happen before. So do you have a behind the scenes policy? And it doesn't necessarily have to be in your contract, but like, hey, normally when parents come on board, yes, right, Masiao, this has totally happened to me. Is that I communicate with the parent, hey, while we're on location, you're welcome to take pictures behind the scenes, but not be in direct, line of me taking the photos. And what type of photos are acceptable for behind the scenes. So again, thinking about those types of situations and how do you communicate that with the client, and what does that look like for you, right? So maybe you have one and maybe you don't, right? Another one is, what happens if they don't fulfill their order, meaning a minimum order? What if they don't place a minimum order? Or maybe you don't have a minimum order. What happens? This is probably one that I get asked a lot, is the minimum. Should I have a minimum a minimum amount of purchase for each of my clients. Hey, Mari. And that's something that's up to you. It's based on your numbers, but I definitely have a minimum in my contract. It's not because I'm out like, hey, everybody, I have a minimum. No, it's there only if I need to leverage it. So if someone comes into my sales meeting and says, I just really want to buy an 8x10, and you've spent 10 plus hours with this client and another, couple hours editing, are you really going to let them get away with, not get away, but let them really just purchase an 8x10? That's up to you, but not for me. I have a minimum that each client has to at least reach. And your clients should reflect your minimum as well. So you definitely need to look at putting minimums in place so that you can protect yourself from getting those 8x10 purchases, which does happen, you guys. It happened to me several years ago, and that's why I have it in there. All right. Another policy you should have in place is that your sales are final, right? If you're selling something, I think that's a known thing, but I want to tell you that if you place an order and someone comes back and has buyer's remorse and you've spent time designing, customizing that order, are you really going to allow for a refund on that? Or a non-return? This goes back to the return policy that you have, but I wrote that down on here because I think putting that in writing as well on your pricing list helps with that policy. Now I had a question asked me, and this is, you guys can totally ask, if you have reps, senior reps, what kind of policies do you have around that? And that really goes along with what your program is about. For me, I actually have 3 major policies around my senior reps that they have to adhere to. It's required. The first one is that I'm their senior photographer, which makes sense, right? And that goes along the line with exclusivity. I think those are 2 different things, but that I have to be their senior photographer. And that means that they're going to be my client, obviously, and that they're going to purchase a minimum order when it comes time to their viewing policy or their viewing appointment, right? The second thing that I definitely think every rep should have is an exclusivity clause. Now, if you go to think about it, if this person is on your senior rep program, is in your senior rep program, and then their dear little friend who just started picking up photography, and they're asking your client to go photograph with them, and then that person starts promoting senior pictures, that looks awkward. It also jeopardizes the integrity of the exclusivity of your senior rep program. And so I just don't allow it. So I do allow, there's a difference, right? If you're taking family photos, obviously that's not senior specific. Or if you're in a prom shoot, that's not senior specific. Or if you're on a sports team, not senior specific. That doesn't bother me at all. But if you are modeling for someone else, the exclusivity clause kicks in. So I definitely have that in there, and it's something that I do talk to my reps about. The other clause that I have in there is an ethics clause, and this is really big, you guys. I'm not here to judge people. And I'm not here to, be the police on social media or anything like that. But we all have standards of how to treat each other with respect. And so I do have an ethics clause in my contract. It's more specifically on the nature of respect, and that if you respect, you have to respect each other. You have to respect me. I have to respect you. Which is common sense, but sometimes, that's not common sense for people. And so I do have an ethics clause for my senior reps. Actually, it's, I think, in my regular client contract and also in my senior rep contract. So I think if you were to look at what's the standard you'd like for people to be treated, that's something that you should put in writing as a policy for your clients. How do they treat each other? How do they treat you? How do they treat your vendors? That's really super important too. So thinking about what standards do you have for your clients in general, but also for your senior reps. And those are the three that I put in there specifically for my senior reps, right? That I'm their senior photographer, there's an exclusivity clause, and then there's an ethics clause. And I've not had a problem. And all of three of those have been a result because of something, a situation that I got put in where I was like, never again, right? So going back to looking at how things happen in your business and putting a policy in place. But this whole topic is to be able to prevent some of those things and just to get you think about what are some of those things that you do need to put in place so it doesn't happen to you. All right, and there's a ton of other policies that you can put in place, but those are the ones that I can think of that are probably pretty important. And like I said, all it does is it creates a boundary around you so that you can deliver the same experience over and over and over again. And that's the whole point, is that you are consistent and that you're not making exceptions. Maybe it's just based on a situation case by case, but that you can deliver the most excellent service that you can based on these policies for every person that comes through your door. There's, like I said, there's a lot more policies in place, but I want you to go back and think about of all the times that things have happened in your business and you're like, gosh, that was terrible, or that was really good, I should keep doing that. Take some time and just write those things down. There's some other ones like maybe sales tax is a policy that you have to put in place. What happens if there's an NSF? I've had that happen before. Some other ones just to think off the top of my head. I have, weather. There's a weather policy. What happens if the weather is crappy outside? How do you handle that? When do you reschedule them? Another policy is how should your clients communicate with you? I'm just thinking about what's in my contract. And I definitely, look at it every year, but how do you want your clients to communicate with you? Should they be texting you? Do you have office hours? Should they be emailing you? How do you communicate with parents who, or do you communicate with the teen first and then the parent when it comes to payment plans? Or again, thinking about those things that could happen. And that's the thing is that you'll never have everything combated, but it's a good opportunity to think about those crazy situations that can arise. One thing is, oh yes, Celeste, this is a great policy. Is not sure if you've already mentioned this, but how many times can they reschedule? That's a great thing to put in your policies. And again, coming back to the no-show or being late, I actually have a rescheduling fee because I have to still pay my makeup artist if my client doesn't show or if they show up late and they cancel. And the makeup artist cancels me because I have now impeded past the time that is allowed for showing up on time, or at least giving them enough time to do the makeup. And so I actually have a rescheduling fee. They have to pay that before they can get back on my calendar. For me, it's twice. If you don't show up twice, or if you show up late twice, I can fire you with no refunds, basically, because now I've given up a day that I could have booked with someone else who would have been a full paying client at that time. And you're at a financial loss, right? Because you gave them that date and now you can't rebook it. That also goes to a policy of rebooking. Do you have a time frame for rebooking? Is how many days do they have to give you before they have to reschedule, or if they're going to reschedule, and can they reschedule? I actually have that in place as well, is that they have to give me at least a week notice, right? 72 hours is not long enough for me to get someone else on that date. And even a week is kind of short too. But I understand that things happen and there are emergencies. and those can be an exception, but that's your call, right? You have the discretion to decide what's what's emergency, or what you will allow as a reasonable reason to reschedule. So actually, let me just look at what's in my policy rechanging order premier appointment. Oh, that's a good one. I was just going to go look at my contract to skim through that really quick to see what's in there. I definitely feel like if you have a policy around if they've already placed their order, and they've paid for it and they have buyer's remorse and they come back, for me, all sales are final. And that also goes with what I mentioned earlier too, is that what happens to the gallery if they don't purchase one, or if they purchase, how long do you keep it, right? So I think for me, when someone places an order, it's a done deal. And the more you can stick to that, because the thing is that if you let people are going to give you every type of excuse in the book. We know this. And so it's good to have a policy, but then you can say, hey, I normally do this, but I can make an exception, so that they know that you have a boundary. That's only if you decide to, offer something different, or different from what you have set in place for your policy, right? The whole point, again, of this topic is to think about these different scenarios that could possibly happen in your business, and that you have some dialogue within your head or on paper, preferably paper, so that you know how to respond to these different situations, and that keep you from feeling guilty of doing something that you wouldn't normally do in your business, which is AKA discounts, or giving the farm away, or putting yourself in a situation where you can't meet deadlines. And so that's why I love being able to sit down and sort of have that dialogue of if this situation happens, how will I handle it? And it's up to me whether I choose to handle it that way, or do I offer, a different solution. So that is the whole point of having policies in place. Doesn't mean that you are, you have found every solution. But by all means, I haven't. I still change my policies from year to year. I meant changing the date of their scheduling order appointment. I tell them if they need to change their appointment, then they go down farther in the schedule queue. Absolutely. I think that's a great policy. So if they really want to see their photos, or their gallery, they are basically, adhering to your schedule. So I don't normally allow for a different schedule to that's not on my schedule already. Again, there's exceptions, right? You can decide what those exceptions are. So, hey, Marina, she's a client of mine. But I hope that helps, Heidi, keeping a boundary. And I wouldn't, also, you should have a policy. This is a good one too. How long do they need, or how long do they get in order to place an order, right? Do you give them an extra week or 2 or 3? Or do they have to schedule within a 2-week period after their photo shoot? What's your policy on getting people in? Because that's another thing too, is right. Do you want them to come in 2 weeks or 3 weeks? And what if they need more time? What if they, think about those different scenarios that could pop up, right? That's the hard thing, is that you won't know until it happens to you. But at least, yes, Heidi, you need to implement that. And in my contract, it says galleries are ready within 2 weeks, or actually 2 weeks, not within 2 weeks, 2 weeks, an appointment should be made. And I actually have a policy around, if they don't come in within 30 days, then I get to archive that gallery, and they have to pay to unarchive it. If you don't have a studio, where would you recommend to hold their ordering appointment? I've done ordering appointments at their home. I've done them at Starbucks. I've done them in my house when I didn't have a studio. I think you can have your ordering appointment anywhere you want. I think the key is making sure that you have, if you're doing it at their house or at a coffee shop, that you have the means to showcase the pictures, and that you have an order form in place, and maybe you have a few samples. That's all you need. You don't need a full-fledged studio to have a in-person sales appointment. It works, right? It works however you want it to work. So, all right. Any questions that you guys have around policies, or what policies you're kind of unsure of? Let me know. I'm actually going to look at, let's see. Great. Yes. Okay. I'm going to just pull out my contract just to see what else I have. Let's see. I have the late policy that I talked about. Date availability. That's a good one too. What days are you normally available for it? How many images are you going to present at the IPS or deliver? That's a good policy to have in place. And I always say the minimum, you guys. You don't want to say, I'm going to deliver 100 images and then you're scrambling to, because you only can get 50. So aim for lower, right? Again, over deliver, under promise, or under promise, over deliver. I always get that mixed up, but you know what I mean. Sales tax, sales are final. Oh, copyright, that should definitely be in there. I talked about social media, images, what to do with those, model release. Is there a duration policy? Do they have to, if they're your senior rep, how long do they have to be your senior rep for? That should be in the contract as well. I talked about communication. How should people communicate with you? Fulfillment of duties. What happens if they don't fulfill their duties? Can you fire them? And if you fire them, is there a cancellation fee? Ooh, that's one I forgot to mention too. Can your client buy out of your contract? In mine, yes, they can. There's a cancellation fee, which is still equates to my minimum order, because I've taken them on as a client, and they should definitely, they're taking a spot. And if they decide to cancel, it should be the same amount that their minimum purchase should be, your minimum purchase should be, so that you don't have a financial loss. I talked about exclusive relationships, the ethics clause. A release of liability, that should be in your, that's more of a, a contractual legal thing, but, let's see. Those are the main things that I have in my contract. But like I said, there's more policies that you can definitely add to your, contract. They don't have to be on your website. I wouldn't put these policies on your website. I would definitely have them in your contract, so there's a mutual understanding of what those things are. But there you go. There you have it. I hope you guys, implement, at least think about or change some of these policies in your business to create a boundary around yourself, so that you're not put in a situation where you're like, gosh, I'm feeling like I'm being taken advantage of, and that's not what we want. We want you to be the CEO of your business, and that the boundary protects you with the notion of, obviously trying to help the client, but not being taken advantage of, right? So there you go. That's this week's topic. I hope it was helpful to you guys. You can definitely send us a DM if you have additional questions. I always look at my policies every year because, things happen every year. So there you go. Have an amazing day. If you guys have questions, like I said, reach out. If there's other topics you want us to talk about, let us know. But most of the time, I'm doing a live in the Coffee House, which is our free Facebook group. that there's a link in our bio. You can go check it out. And you can, I usually do a weekly live there or on Instagram. So we want this to be a platform that educates our industry and to being a better business owner, so that you can create the life that you love because of your business. That's our mission for here at the 12th year. And like I said, be sure to join our free Facebook group. And we will be back next week with a featured fan interview. I'm excited for what our lineup is over the next several weeks. And we'll see you guys there. All right, you guys, see you later. Bye.